good evening. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now's Rise with India Primetime segment. I'm Mubina Kapasi, and it's an action-packed show, starting with the news coming in from the RBI this morning. It's a bonanza of sorts for the middle class, for the businessmen as well, as not only have they chopped the interest rates, which will lead to your EMI bill hopefully coming down soon, but also a moratorium has been granted for a period of 3 months. What does that mean? I'm sure you may be having a lot of questions and queries. In just moments from now, we will get them answered. So tweet to us. You can call in 24990300. You can email us as well on themoneyshow@etnow.tv, and we will get your questions answered. Questions like whether you should refinance your loan. What does this moratorium mean? Does it apply to you? What if you have a credit card loan? Among other things. And later on the show, we will also be bringing on board our personal finance expert of the day, Mr. Hemant Rustagi. We've been telling you about how you must get your portfolio reviewed. Tough times like these, you're quarantined at home. Why not use this time to get your portfolio checked by our money management experts? So all of this is lined up over the course of the next 1 hour. Keep your questions and queries ready. We will be getting them answered on our Ask the Money Show segment. But before we do any of that, here's a look at the headlines. RBI unleashes its arsenal to soften the COVID blow. Slashes repo rate by 75 basis points and reverse repo by a steeper 90 basis points. Governor Das announces a 3-month moratorium on EMI installments of all term loans. Says, make no mistake, the world is facing a big unprecedented crisis, but this too shall pass. Rate cut by RBI, though, fails to cheer investors on the last street as the Sensex ends 130 points lower. Nifty manages to hold 8,600, but Bank Nifty logs in gains. However, this is the 6th straight week of losses for the Indian markets. The PMO and the FinMin plan, a relief for India Inc., a 4 lakh crore rupee package is set to be in the works. The government estimates that the total stimulus will be at 5% of the GDP, with a relief package that may be announced by the weekend or next week. That's an ET Now exclusive. As India moves into the 3rd day of the 21-day lockdown period, the death toll rises to 17. The total number of infected cases soar to 724. US becomes the new coronavirus hotspot with 82,000 cases. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has tested positive for COVID-19. All eyes on Wall Street as we reach the final day to pass the mega stimulus package. The package is expected to help 93.6% of Americans through a direct cash transfer. The Dow futures staring at a 3% cut at the open for now. Well, those are the headlines that we are going to be tracking for you all evening on ET Now, so stay tuned for that. But, of course, the big topic of today is the bonanza of sorts given by the RBI. What they have done? Well, firstly, they have slashed interest rates, which means your EMI bill for your home, for your car, personal loan, the interest bill may go down. Secondly, they've also announced a moratorium, which means that for 3 months, you do not need to repay the bank in terms of the EMI. So it's a deferral, it's not a cancellation. Remember, it's just a deferral of the EMI, of the outstanding loan, of the outstanding interest to June. These are the 2 big announcements that one would hope is going to help a lot of middle class individuals, a lot of businessmen as well, to help them tide over this crisis caused by the coronavirus epidemic. Do remember that businesses have been shut down, which have led to a lot of individuals as well, either unfortunately, some of them have gotten out of a job, they've had to face pay cuts, or they're simply out of any steady cash flow, especially some of the daily wage earners. Hence, the government as well has been coming out with a slew of measures. This one is one such measure. I'm joined by Adhil Shetty, CEO and co-founder of bankbazaar.com. Adhil, really appreciate you giving us your time on the Money Show. Simply put, from a customer perspective, yes, we have seen the RBI cut interest rates in the past as well. Sometimes we would see our EMI bill go down, sometimes we wouldn't. But there are several new things as well that have been announced by the RBI. Something called as long-term repo operations, which the governor said will ensure that your EMI bill will go down because it will ensure transmission of these rate cuts to the final customer. So very simple question for all of our viewers watching right now, those who have their EMI payments coming up, say maybe by the end of this month or the beginning of the next month, can they expect the bill to be slightly lower?
So there's a EMI moratorium which the RBI has permitted the banks. So we'll talk about that, but for a minute, let me just answer your question directly about the rate transmission. As a consumer, right, you need to look at your loan and see, is it a repo rate loan or it is an MCLR loan? If it's a repo rate loan, given that the repo rate has been reduced on the reset date, your EMI should go down. If it's an MCLR loan, the banks will now assess their MCLR. Like you rightly pointed out, there's a lot of liquidity the RBI has infused to help consumers, to help banks, to get the flow of credit going. So with MCLR, wait for your bank to reset its MCLR, and on your reset date, your EMI should come down.
Well, Adil, now it's not just MCLR based loans. Since October, we had a lot of banks announce repo linked loans as well. As the name suggests, it's obviously linked to the repo rate. So if the RBI has slashed the repo by 75 basis points, then simply speaking, shouldn't I as well have to pay an interest that would be lower by 75 basis points or 0.75%? And yeah, of course, like you mentioned, there's that moratorium. So I may not have to pay it, this month, next to next month, etc. But whenever I will have to, can I expect that the interest amount will be exactly 0.75% lower since it is repo linked?
If you have a repo linked loan, like you rightly said, since October 1st, there have been repo rate linked loans, and such consumers will see the benefit flow automatically.
Okay, all right. What would you recommend? Now, there was something that the governor mentioned, and that is that the RBI will be maintaining an accommodative stance. Now, of course, when it comes to taking loans, there are different kind of loans that are out there. There are fixed term loans. There are loans linked to base rates, loans linked to MCLR, loans linked to some sort of an external benchmark. What would you recommend all of these borrowers do, especially if they have a home loan, car loan, personal loan, short term, long term? What would you recommend they do? And especially for those who are on a fixed rate basis, would you recommend that they move or refinance their loan?
See, let's divide this into two parts. So if you're a home loan borrower, I think a lot of positives happened for you today. One is obviously the repo rate came down. Let's wait during this India lockdown for things to stabilize. I think once the lockdown is over on April 14th, assess saying what is the EMI you're paying today. And if you were to look at the current new home loan rates, are you saving on your EMI? And is that saving enough for you to want to refinance? In which case you can talk to your bank. I think for a floating rate loan, wait to see what happens with the MCLR, wait to see what happens with the new loan, see how much EMI you're paying and decide if you want to refinance. If you're in a fixed rate loan, you also have to look at your pre-closure fee. So floating rate loans don't have pre-closure. So fixed rate loans have pre-closure. So there it becomes a two-step function. So not only do you see how much your EMI will change if you take a fresh loan or a refinance, but what the pre-closure charge on the fixed rate loan you're running is, and then you see if the cost benefit makes sense to change or not. I think currently all the banks are under reduced operation. So under the lockdown scenario, we just have to wait and watch. But once that's over, right, there's a certain one-step process for floating rate and a two-step process for fixed rate loan in case of refinance.
Sending you. Of course, I think another point, Adil, that I would like to also add on is sometimes the whole cost of, refinancing the loan outweighs the benefits because, firstly, if it's a fixed loan, you may have those prepaid charges, then you would have all the processing fees, etc. So, in such a scenario, Adil, I mean, how important would those ancillary costs and charges from switching from one kind of loan to another or from one bank to another be? I mean, how important, what sort of weightage would you attach to that as well, Adil?
I think in case of a fixed rate loan, it can amount to a reasonable amount because there's a pre-closure fee, there might be a processing fee for the new loan. I think let's simplify this, right? I think what we're saying from the borrower's perspective is how much are you saving in terms of your total outflow? So it doesn't matter if your outflow is in EMI or it's in these switching charges. You want to say over the tenor of the remaining loan, how much money are you saving in terms of total outflow from your pocket? So you literally have to just sit down. There are lots of online tools available today. You can use them online and figure out saying, will my total cash outflow from my wallet decrease or not if I was to refinance? And yes, the switching cost, especially if it's a fixed rate loan, is something you need to consider.
Okay, all right. Okay, Adil, now on the flip side, of course, while for borrowers it's a bonanza because you've had that rate cut, you have the moratorium, which we'll as well come to, but fixed deposit rates as well will come down, and I'm assuming that come 31st March, I'm pretty sure that the government will also want to slash the interest rates on the small savings scheme. So, I mean, is that as well something that all our viewers could expect, that the next time they will go to the bank to renew their fixed deposits, the interest rates are going to be lower compared to what it was when they last booked their FDs?
Yeah, you make a valid point. Let's split this into three parts. So one is if you have an FD running, that's a contract. That doesn't change. So just because something changed in the repo rate today doesn't mean your fixed deposit contract is changing. So if you've locked in a fixed deposit, you will get what is promised. Secondly, right, you always see that loan rates and deposit rates, fixed deposit rates move in tandem. That's how the system works. So given that loan rates are following, yes, we can expect that when the bank's pricing committee meets, that fixed deposit rates will fall. So when you renew your fixed deposit, you can expect if loan rates are falling, that deposit rates will fall. Regarding small savings instruments, right, I think the government is doing a lot to shore up retail consumer and retail confidence. So whether they'll choose to touch it or not, I think only time will tell because they are going out of their way to give us confidence because there's a certain sense of anxiety today, right? I'm locked in my house, I can't step out. I think the government is telling people, please stay calm, right? Health is most important. As long as you practice social distancing, as long as you're at home, we believe that we're flattening the curve. And we'll do a number of additional moves which should give you benefit. So stay calm. I think that the moratorium was one of them. It was a big one. And now let's see what else comes.
You make a fair point, Adil. I suppose the government may just not slash the interest rates on PPF, senior citizen savings schemes, etc. Perhaps to instill that bit of confidence in individuals who are any which ways under this 21-day lockdown period. So fingers crossed, especially for all the individuals out there who have their retirement savings, etc., parked in such instruments. All right. Now, of course, Adil, the other important point with respect to a moratorium. So many questions have been asked. Everybody is asking that, oh, will I have to not pay my EMI for the next 3 months? Because that's essentially what a moratorium means. For the next 3 months, you do not have to repay your loan/interest. Is it as simple as that? Regardless of wherever I have taken a loan, whether it's a bank, whether it's a financing company, a consumer financing company, a vehicle financing company, I will not have to pay the loan or the EMI for the next 3 months, Adil?
So let's again answer this in three parts. So firstly, what the RBI has said is banks, NBFCs and HFCs are permitted to offer the moratorium. So the answer to the first question is wait and see what your bank says, what your NBFC says, what your housing finance company says. So the RBI, I think very smartly has said banks are permitted and now the banks will act. And I think, the IBA put out a statement asking for this. So I do believe that we'll start hearing from bank by bank in terms of how they're going to deal with it. So point number one, right, is wait to hear from your bank. I think this is advice number one we're giving all the consumers at Bank Bazaar. Point number two, right, is this is a moratorium for EMI payments between March 1st and May 31st. So like you rightly pointed out, you do not need to pay the EMI once your bank confirms that to you, but interest is calculated over the period of the moratorium. So if you have the money and you do pay, you should continue because your principal is going to keep going down. So the interest is still going to continue over the period of the moratorium. That being said, I think it's a considerable benefit that the RBI has given the Indian consumer and the banks will give the Indian consumer, given the tough, anxiety-prone phase that everyone is going through during the COVID lockdown. The last point, right, is it's very clear in the RBI circular that if your bank gives you the moratorium and you don't pay your EMI, your credit score will not be negatively affected. I think that's great news to hear. We're advising consumers to stay on top of your credit score, check it online, just make sure that everything goes as per what you expect in terms of no negative impact on your credit score.
Okay, understood. Also, another quick clarification, Adil. Let's say if I had just hypothetically this 1 year duration of the loan. Now that I have this 3-year moratorium, obviously it means that the duration of my loan as well has increased from 1 year or 12 months to 15 months?
Great point, great point. So that's something people need to keep in mind. When your bank communicates to you about the moratorium, they will also communicate to you about the tenor of your loan. So you can expect, right, if you're not paying 3 EMIs now, you'll pay a similar number of EMIs at the end of the tenor of the loan. So when you get your communication, it will clearly lay out, right, how this will operate because this is a moratorium, not a waiver. You can expect, right, that the bank will clearly tell you what is going to happen to your tenor. And especially if they're keeping your EMI steady, which a lot of them will, logically, right, in order to keep EMI steady, they will need to increase the tenor of the loan.
Okay. All right. So that's something that each individual customer / borrower will also have to talk to their bank about. You know what, Adil, we've got lots of questions and queries lined up from a lot of our viewers. We've been tweeting about this show since morning, and a lot of our viewers as well have commented on my Twitter handle with their questions and queries. Let me tell our viewers, if you have any basic questions or queries on, this moratorium that has been announced by the RBI, you can call in 24990300. But for now, I want to take up our very first query received via Twitter. Bruno D'Souza 94 tweets to us saying, does a moratorium also apply to my consumer loan taken from Bajaj Finance? If yes, will it be interest free? And what if I want to pay off the loan? Basically, he does not want to opt for this moratorium. He can, because he's comfortable with his cash flow situation, he just wants to do a good deed for Bajaj Finance, if you could call it that, and not avail this moratorium. So Adil, I mean, what's your assessment of this?
See, the question is valid. It's actually applicable for any lender. So it could be any of them. And we're getting a lot of these questions on Bank Bazaar too. So point number one, right, like we said, the RBI has permitted. Now wait to hear from your lender as to what they're going to do. And we're expecting to hear from all the lenders over the next few days. So one, wait to hear from Bajaj Consumer Finance. That's point number one. Point number two, right, even during the moratorium, interest will be calculated. So interest is not waived. This is just a moratorium, and the interest is being calculated during this window. It's just that you don't need to pay EMI. Your credit score will not be negatively affected. There'll be no penal charges. Last point, right, is if you want to continue to pay or you want to pay your loan off, by all means, go ahead and do so. I think there's no change in that.
Okay, you want to go ahead and pay your loan, go ahead and do so. Definitely the banks for sure not going to stop you, because for them it's great that you do not want to avail this moratorium and you simply just want to pay the loan off. Okay, now Zafar tweets to us saying, does moratorium mean pay the entire amount not paid for the last 3 months in one go in June? Again, another valid question. Again, another, it would be related to what we were saying, right? I mean, either the duration of the loan is increased by 3 months, or you're just paying off these 3 months of the missed payments in June itself. So Adil, anything that the RBI has clarified on that front?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head in your previous statement. You will either have the option, if you want to pay the same EMI, 100% your tenor will need to increase. If you're willing to pay a higher EMI, maybe you can keep the same tenor. But the key to the answer is you're not paying this 3-month EMI off in June. That's definitely not happening. Because think of it logically, right? All of us are going through a tough time. How are we going to come up with 3 months EMI in June? That's not how it works. You will hear from your bank. If you want to continue or you pay the same EMI, the number of EMIs is going to increase. If you want to have the number of EMIs staying steady, but yet avail of the moratorium, then your EMI will have to go up. Logically, one of these two things have to happen.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I mean, the fact is that you're obviously, I mean, at least some of y'all may be facing cash crunch issues. That's why the RBI has said, look, you know what, you can defer the payment by another 3 months. But that does not mean you'll have to suddenly cough up the money for the entire 3 months. That just defeats the whole purpose, because, the government, the bank as well understands that you're going through a cash flow issue. So, yeah, it's just basically an extension of the duration of the loan by 3 months. Okay, another very valid question. Aditya10 via Twitter has tweeted to us saying, are moratorium rules applicable for loans raised on credit card and dues based out of it? This is a very valid one. A lot of individuals take loans out of their credit cards. Some big payments that are made via credit cards, credit card companies offer them the EMI option, that they can pay their EMI bill out, pay their credit card bill via EMI. So would that be valid for the moratorium be valid for these loans as well, Adil?
So there was a clarification which just came out in the last few minutes, which says that credit cards dues are included in the moratorium. But I would advise you, right, when you get your communication from the bank, clearly understand how the interest on the credit card due is being calculated for the period of the moratorium. So two parts to the answer. Yes, there's been a clarification which came out in the last few minutes where I do believe that credit card dues are included as part of the moratorium, because what came out in the morning was term loan. Now, term loan is a loan which has a fixed term, right? Like a home loan, a car loan, a personal loan. So typically a credit card is not a term loan, but a clarification came out in the last few minutes saying credit cards will be included. But I'd say definitely wait to hear the communication from your bank, because at the end of the day, the RBI has permitted. The bank now needs to decide. And when you see it, right, pay attention to understand how the interest calculation on your credit card dues during the moratorium period will apply. This is the advice we're giving all our consumers at Bank Bazaar.
Okay. All right, fair point. Well, very quickly, let's take on board our next query. Basically, credit card loans will not fall under moratorium. You will have to make the payment for a credit card. It's only a term loan. So home loans, personal finance loans, consumer finance loans, all of that will come under this moratorium, and the RBI permits you to defer your, bill payment. Okay. Nas Jones 3 via Twitter tweets, what about vehicle loans? Will the bank ask before deducting the EMI, or do they have a compliance mechanism to defer the same? Okay, so he's basically asking that will the bank give you the option if you want us to defer the EMI, or will they simply just deduct the EMI at the point, and it gives the option to the customer that, look, if you want, we can defer your EMI. Is that how it's going to work, Adil?
So 2 points here. Firstly, vehicle loan is a term loan. Yes, it's under the moratorium. I think you have to wait to hear from your bank. Now, while the RBI is permitted, when the bank communicates with you, and you can hear about it on the channel, you can hear about it in the news, but they will communicate how the process will work. Is it automatic? Are they not going to subtract EMI for everyone, which is a very simple universal process? Or is it an opt-in process? Please wait to hear from your bank. I think that's the important takeaway that we want to give your viewers. wait to hear from your bank how this process is going to activate, because yes, it is a fantastic benefit that the RBI has permitted this during the COVID phase, but wait to hear from your bank. The second point is, while you're right, and I'm referring back to the previous question, in the morning, what we were told is the moratorium is for term loans, but there is an additional clarification which has come out in the last few minutes, which says it might apply for credit card dues too. So there's been a small change. Let's just wait to hear from our banks. I believe credit card dues might also be included, but definitely vehicle loans are part of term loans. But wait to hear from your bank. What is the mechanism for them to activate this for you?
Okay. So every bank may be having a different mechanism or a procedure in place on how they're going to go about putting this moratorium in place. So just either you contact your bank directly or wait to hear from them. I'm going to take the liberty of clubbing the next two queries that we've just received from Madhav Kumar R. He's just emailed us, and also Raj Pachori has tweeted to us. Now, Madhav Kumar R asks, can you please clarify the below? Interest shall continue to accrue on the outstanding portion of the term loans during the moratorium period. And similarly, Raj has tweeted saying, do we have to pay interest on the moratorium period? Kind of similar questions. They're saying it's a moratorium on your term loan. So firstly, will the interest continue to accrue, and will you have to pay interest in that later period? And secondly, during this moratorium, is it just that you don't have to pay the principal while you'll have to pay the interest? So two similar questions. Adhil, your clarification?
Yeah, I think the question is the same. Quick answer, the interest will be calculated even during the moratorium. So you don't have to pay your EMI, right? So the RBI is looking at this more from a cash flow perspective. So because of the COVID phase, because everyone is locked up, right? You don't need to pay your EMI, but the interest will calculate according to what we understand from the RBI notification. Wait to hear from your financial institution. And, I honestly believe that we have a strong banking system in India. These are world-class institutions. They will make it fairly straightforward and easy for us.
Great. Great. Well, that's all the time we have for questions and queries. Adhil, really appreciate you giving us your time and your valuable expertise, explaining it so simply for all our borrowers, our customers, our viewers joining in right now. Thank you so much for joining in. Folks, if we've not been able to take your query due to shortage of time, don't fret. We will be back next week. We will ensure we take up this segment next week as well. For now, we will take a very short break. Don't go anywhere. When we return, we are going to be getting your portfolio queries answered, telling you how to manage your money and manage your mutual fund investments in these turbulent times.